there are patterns in the like subconscious, unconscious levels of the mind, which react when things happen, like having to pay a bill, for example. And they're different. Everybody's different. Now, a millionaire might have $100 debt that he has to pay. And when he pays it, it's almost pleasurable. When a person has, huge affluence, actually paying people well for services rendered is a pleasure. It's just a pleasure. It carries no pinch with it whatsoever. And if a person's very, very poor, obviously the opposite, that even having to pay a little bit, just paying just for your basic needs, can be a pinch. And so what happens is when that experience repeats itself over and over and over again, it creates a habit in the system of having that emotional reaction every time that particular action takes place. So the individual who is already affluent, then even if they become a little bit less affluent, they've evolved these habits in the system of feeling a kind of a joyous reaction when the money goes out, and feeling unattached when the money comes in. Because for a person who's very wealthy, it doesn't mean that much, right? If a person's a multimillionaire and they get $10,000, it's like, oh, okay. My accountants will take care of that. I'm not really paying a lot of attention to that $10,000 one way or the other. But for a person who's got these habits established in the system of being kind of destitute and thinking like poverty consciousness, even when the money comes in, it's never enough. There's always that feeling, like a little edge of resentment. Oh, I just got $1,000. Well, that's too bad. That really isn't quite enough. So these reactions are what we transmit. The reactions are part of the flow that goes from, that goes from the point of individuality, because the body's like a little point in creation, and it radiates out to the whole universe. And it radiates back to the source of creation. And the source of creation responds with a solution. But when the habits are deeply enmeshed in the deep levels, in the subconscious, unconscious levels of the mind, which are getting us down into the feeling level, it's that feeling, it's never enough. The feeling sits right in this gap. These feelings that sit in this gap are more powerful. They have a more powerful influence on the whole manifesting process than a feeling that's produced or an impulse that's produced just from a thought level. So what we're doing is realizing that up here at the denser levels of the physiology, there are beliefs and habits that support that feeling being stuck there. The stuck feeling of not enough, it's never enough. And just paying for my basic needs is just painful. Those feelings, they get stuck right there. And they have a more powerful influence. So how do we unstick them? They're held in with the loops that are coming from the denser and subtler levels from creation are like threads, or they're like a fabric that sticks certain patterns into the system. And so the download that came in, and I think this isn't just the most recent, but the one right before it, was a quality. Oh yeah, it was that intelligence, that clarity intelligence. The clarity intelligence. Very light, very sort of working with the same level of delicacy or tenderness as the feeling at the deepest level of the emotional body, okay? And so it's able to work its way in, and it's this light energy is, and when I say light, I don't mean like a light bulb light, even though there is a quality there like that, but I mean it's like it's very sort of nonchalant almost, but that's not quite the right word either. It's very unattached. It sees in a very broad spectrum, and it can go in and it can undo all the little threads, the beliefs, the habits. This is what's happening at the denser levels of the physiology. Some of these loops that are responsible for how that middle resonation functions, those loops are being restructured according to this quality of light orderliness, like a tidy house. Like a tidy house. Getting everything sorted out, unpacking those emotional packages which are not serving the purpose of financial affluence. You have to unpack them. So as those unpack, right now, they're unpacking. What this does is it opens the potential of the deeper levels, like the subconscious, unconscious levels of the mind, the areas of thinking and feeling that we normally consider to be kind of like outside the range of our control. It restructures them intentionally so that they are functioning the way a millionaire would function. Less attachment. The mind wants to grip outcomes. And when it grips outcomes, it makes the opportunity for the outcome to exceed one's expectations impossible. The mind is too grippy. These are old habits. They're old habits, and there are pain bodies connected to the old habits of feeling somehow at home with those feelings of desperation. And that's the stick. That is the stick. And it's not to say that anybody's wrong because they have that experience, because it's not wrong. You know, we are humans living on Earth. So we have both that carrot and stick side of our beings. And that's the beauty of being in the human form. That is the beauty of divinity experiencing itself through the human physiology, is that it has the potential for the whole range of human experience. And as we go through human experience, every one of those turns to become a deeper integration of divinity in what we know to be self. Restructuring self-definition. Self-definition. Okay, so here, and thank you for this question. I'm still going on this brilliant question here. When an individual has self-defined, well, I'm not a millionaire. Well, I'm not a rich person. I'm a poor person. Self-defined. I'm a poor person. Well, there's a whole layer of baggage that goes along with I'm a poor person. And that includes, you know, I have to work really hard for every penny I get, and every penny I get is never enough. And when I have to pay out, I have to pay so much money. You know, I have to pay more than I have, and so forth. All that material is in there as it's wrapped up in the self-definition of being poor. That self-definition sits at the junction, because right there is where we cut the line. That's right where the transition is between myself as a field of infinite potential, like there's nothing I cannot accomplish, and myself bound in space and time. So that's right there where that self-definition sits. And that, as I mentioned before, is an extremely powerful spot. So the principle here is that we have choices, whether we self-define based on points of reference in the relative. Anytime one is engaged in the process of performing action for the sake of bringing in money or bringing in affluence, that the experience is, I'm not bringing in the money. I'm not bringing in the affluence. I am playing. I am playing in the field of being. And I'm doing this thing. I'm engaging in this activity or in this behavior, which is just luscious. It's just luscious. And being loves to get in and get muddy and get dirty and to engage in different activities, even if that means putting yourself out there with people that are, there's one lady on the course on the webinar tonight who works with people who are disturbed. She works, she's an emergency nurse. She's an emergency nurse. And that's some of us would feel that's a very stressful place to work. But she's so suited to that position that for her, it's almost like play. She's just there with the people and she knows what to do, and it's so fulfilling. And then whatever money comes, it comes. But money can often come from surprising, unusual places. We open up that sense of the money coming from everywhere. It comes from the whole field of life around. Not just, I did this one thing for this many hours and I got this many dollars. I mean, some of the money we get comes through those channels. But the reality is that the wealth that comes, it comes through the entire creation is manifesting unbelievable. We treat ourselves with reverence and dignity. We do not call ourselves poor people anymore. You are divinity manifesting in the relative. And when divinity manifests in the relative, divinity has access to all knowledge. I know that sounds abstract. I know it sounds abstract. But the thing is, we've got to start somewhere. Even if it means starting at an abstract level and letting that little abstract seed grow and become more manifest and more dense and start drawing in shapes and forms and structures from the environment to kind of pad it up until it gets all the way up to the dense relative level of creation. And the thing that you're doing that is so delightful and feels just like playing becomes the thing that brings in income, becomes also the channel by which you are deeply, deeply appreciated. Your heart. The heart opens, and that sense of self-reverence and self-dignity. So, okay, even if I am poor, even if I'm poor, I can, I've got water in my sink. I can keep my clothes clean. Maybe I'm too poor to have a wash machine, but I can at least, I can dress this being in dignity. I can dress the being and address the being with dignity. Dress and address with dignity. The reverence is the key.
Like a bird on a tree,